The city never truly sleeps, especially atop the glass towers, where the lives of the wealthy blur into endless nights and restless mornings. From his penthouse window, Kingsley Adebanjo watched the world pulse far below. Neon lights danced on humid air. Distant music throbbed in the veins of the metropolis. Vendors called, their voices weaving through darkness like a tapestry of hope and hunger. Tonight, the world outside seemed determined to distract him from a truth he'd been avoiding. Kingsley was exhausted, a bone-deep weariness that not even the city's energy could mask. He had just returned from yet another charity dinner, his presence demanded by business partners who believed philanthropy added a necessary sheen to their reputations. The event was all glitter and performance, speeches polished to perfection, laughter soaked in expensive red wine, and people who counted their fortunes in zeros rather than heartbeats. Kingsley played his part dutifully. He smiled for the cameras, shook hands with strangers, and scribbled a hefty donation meant to change lives he'd never meet. By midnight, he had managed to slip away, his departure unnoticed amid the shimmering pretense, eager for nothing but silence. The ride home was a blur, city lights flaring past rivulets of rain on tinted windows. As his car finally pulled up in front of his penthouse, Kingsley could only think of sleep, of collapsing into a bed that had waited days for his return. Outside, the city still hummed with life. Voices of vendors selling roasted corn, mingling with laughter from a nearby nightclub. But inside, his private world was meant to be an oasis, a fortress of peace from relentless ambition. He slid his key into the lock, moving through muscle memory more than intent. But tonight, something was different. The moment the door closed behind him, a sudden force halted his stride. A hand, small but strong, clamped over his mouth. Kingsley's heart raced, every sense sharpened, ready to fight, ready to defend the sanctuary he called home. He froze, feeling the tremble in the grip, hearing the desperate hush of a voice he struggled to place. "Don't make a sound," she whispered, soft, urgent, edged with fear. Subscribe to the Untold channel and like it. Our vibrant stories will add years to your life. Join our storytelling club and tell us in the comments, where do you listen to them from? Familiarity bloomed as the voice pressed against his ear. Amaka, the maid, young and quiet, her presence in the house barely felt most days, had somehow become essential. 2 weeks since her arrival, a temporary replacement sent by an agency after the last maid's abrupt departure. She blended into the background in her plain black uniform and neat white apron, moving with the precision of someone who wished to avoid notice. But tonight, her eyes betrayed her. No longer quiet, but shining wet with emotion, her gaze locked onto his with a mix of dread and determination. "What are you doing here at this hour?" Kingsley demanded, voice low and clipped, as he tugged the tie from his aching neck. Amaka's chin wavered, but her voice was steady. "Please," she pleaded, "don't raise your voice." He bristled. Why shouldn't he? This was his home, and yet she stood guard, trembling with some hidden truth. Amaka drew a shaky breath, meeting his confusion with urgent clarity. "Because your son is sleepwalking. If you wake him the wrong way, you might lose him." The words landed heavy, their meaning twisting Kingsley's insides. His son, Junior, was sleepwalking? Kingsley stared at Amaka, searching her eyes for exaggeration or mistake. But her worry was genuine, carved by nights spent watching over a boy who wandered halls alone, a detail he, the busy father, had missed entirely. Amaka glanced down the corridor nervously, whispering, "It happens every night, about this time. I've been staying late to guide him." Tonight, she revealed, Junior had nearly reached the stairs. Fear seized Kingsley as he imagined his child, just 7 years old, shy, gentle, navigating danger, while he himself was absent, wrapped up in meetings and deals. The magnitude of what Amaka had prevented unsettled him deeply. Here was a woman he barely knew, risking far more than her job for a boy who carried Kingsley's blood. The tension in Kingsley eased into raw vulnerability. He hadn't been home often enough to notice the signs. His role as provider had cost him the privilege of presence. Amaka's hands shook slightly as she confessed. "No one else noticed. I stayed after work. I couldn't just leave him." Kingsley frowned. "You're not paid for that." But Amaka met his gaze without flinching. "I know." Her simple response stung more than any rebuke. Wealth, he realized, could fill a house with comforts, but it could not buy the quiet watchfulness Amaka had shown his son. For years, Kingsley had thrown resources at every problem. Exclusive nannies, the best schools, professional drivers, thinking these would guarantee safety, happiness, and love. But tonight, standing beside Amaka, who had silently borne a secret and responsibility meant for him, Kingsley's perspective shifted. He felt a mixture of shame and gratitude, a new respect forming for the young woman who had become an unwitting guardian in his absence. Sleep no longer tempted Kingsley. Instead, he found himself drawn toward the dimly lit hallway where his son slept, his heart pounding with each cautious step. Behind him, Amaka hovered silently, her presence now a comfort rather than an intrusion. The penthouse, once a symbol of achievement, felt transformed in this hour, its vastness echoing with a father's regret and longing. Kingsley's mind swirled with questions. How often had he missed these moments? How many milestones had slipped past unnoticed, lost in the noise of boardrooms and the pursuit of applause? Quietly, he opened Junior's bedroom door. Moonlight poured through wide windows, illuminating the small figure curled beneath pale blue sheets, eyelashes dusting flushed cheeks. Kingsley paused, watching his son's slow, steady breaths. The innocence of childhood, the vulnerability, struck him with piercing clarity. All the wealth in the world seemed insignificant compared to the fragile heartbeat before him. Amaka waited at the threshold, her gaze tender. She explained, "He walks when dreams scare him. I think he feels lonely sometimes." Kingsley bristled with guilt. How long had it been since he'd sat by his son's bed, reading stories or listening to fears whispered in the dark? Amaka's words cut deeper than criticism. They revealed the silent ache that lingered in the child's world. Kingsley knelt beside Junior's bed, fingers trembling as he brushed a stray curl from his son's brow. For a moment, he allowed himself to simply exist. Father, protector, witness to a life that had been overshadowed by obligation and distance. The rhythm of Junior's breathing, steady and safe, soothed the storm inside him. As Kingsley watched, an old memory surfaced. The day Junior was born, Kingsley's heartbeat twinned with his son's first cries. He had promised then to never let the boy face the world alone. Yet years had unraveled that vow, replaced it with good intentions that fell short of presence. Behind him, Amaka whispered, "Sometimes he talks in his sleep, says he misses you." The words stung, gentle as they were. They forced Kingsley to confront what he had become, a stranger in the life he helped create. Tonight, though, he made another unspoken oath, to remember what truly mattered. He stood slowly, turning to Amaka with gratitude and awe. "You saved him," he said, voice thick. More than once. Amaka shook her head, humility painting her expression. "Junior saves me too. We're both lonely sometimes." As dawn crept across the city skyline, coloring the clouds in gentle pinks and golds, Kingsley realized he couldn't face this struggle alone. Amaka's courage, the quiet strength she showed for his son, became the foundation of a decision he should have made long ago. He invited her into the kitchen, offering tea and time. The space warmed with whispered conversation, interrupted only by the hum of the fridge and the murmur of wind outside. Kingsley asked about Amaka's life, curious now about more than just her skills as a caretaker. Born and raised in Lagos, she spoke of late nights and dreams long deferred, her words carrying the cadence of resilience. She revealed how she'd taken this job to support younger siblings, trading her own ambitions for the hope of a better future. Kingsley listened, struck by similarities to his own journey. Both had sacrificed, though for different reasons. Both found themselves in lives shaped by necessity rather than choice. In the gentle light of morning, beneath the shadows of skyscrapers, the line between employer and employee blurred. They became allies in protection, their stories woven together by shared sacrifice. The new day carried with it the complications of reality. Phone calls, meetings, schedules. Kingsley's assistant bombarded him with reminders and urgent questions, pulling him toward the chaos that was always waiting. But something fundamental had shifted during the night. Instead of rushing to his study, Kingsley chose to sit with Junior over breakfast, pouring cereal and watching little hands arrange blueberries in smiley face patterns. For the first time in months, conversation flowed easily, simple, loving, tinged with laughter. Junior asked about Kingsley's work, about skyscrapers and contracts, and Kingsley responded with patience, resisting the urge to simplify or dismiss. Through Junior's questions, Kingsley rediscovered wonder, seeing the world anew through his son's eyes. Amaka joined them, preparing juice, her smile understated but sincere. The kitchen, usually sterile and silent, brimmed with warmth. Kingsley resolved in those quiet moments to be present not only in title, but in spirit. Each interaction became a thread, repairing the fabric of family, a tapestry woven from small, everyday acts of care. News of last night's incident, shared discreetly with Kingsley's ex-wife, brought an unexpected visit later that day. She arrived tense, worry etched across her brow. The divorce had built high walls between them, but both remained devoted to Junior. In the soft light of the living room, everyone gathered. Amaka, Kingsley, and his ex-wife, united for the sake of one child's safety. They agreed to work together, forging new routines that would ensure Junior was never left unprotected again. It meant hiring additional help, consulting sleep specialists, and openly communicating in ways they'd once avoided. Each person claimed responsibility, shedding blame in favor of collaboration. The process was messy, uncomfortable at times, but necessary. Kingsley felt a surge of relief. This was family, reshaped by crisis and care, held together by the desire to heal. Amaka, once an outsider, was now part of their circle, her insights valued and respected. Junior watched the adults, sensing the change, leaning into newfound security. It was a beginning, born from fear, sustained by hope. Daily rhythm shifted after that pivotal night. Kingsley insisted on rearranging his work schedule, devoting mornings and evenings solely to Junior. He no longer left parenting to routine and convenience. He became an active guardian, involved in every small and large part of his son's life. He began to walk Junior to school, taking winding routes through shaded boulevards so they could talk beneath the jacaranda trees. Each purple flower scattered on the pavement became a precious shared discovery. The simple ritual of holding his son's hand, once taken for granted, now filled Kingsley with unexpected pride and peace. Amaka, seeing the change in Kingsley, found herself opening up as well. She started to share gentle stories from her village, weaving lessons from her childhood into bedtime tales for Junior. These stories, full of wise grandmothers and heroic cousins, brought warmth into nights that had once felt cold and uncertain. Slowly, laughter and comfort replaced tension. Even Amaka felt the growing sense of belonging. Her efforts and sacrifices no longer went unnoticed. The home began to feel like a place of gratitude and possibility, rather than just another stop on her journey. As weeks passed, Junior's sleepwalking episodes became less frequent, a testament to his growing sense of safety and love surrounding him. But tracing the path from crisis to healing wasn't always smooth. There were setbacks, the occasional return of nightmares, or mornings when dark circles lingered beneath Junior's eyes. Yet Kingsley and Amaka faced these moments together, supporting each other through trials, big and small. Kingsley reached out to sleep specialists and therapists, hoping for answers that would fortify their home against fear. These experts spoke of routine, reassurance, the importance of presence. Kingsley realized that solutions were not only found in prescribed medicine or expensive consultations, but in small, everyday moments of care. A story at dusk, a hand held in the dark, the stillness of a father's embrace. Amaka's knowledge of herbal remedies, drawn from her upbringing, complemented their efforts. Calming teas and gentle songs became part of Junior's bedtime routine. With time, the household adopted new rituals, wind-down hours with no screens, shared evening walks around the block, and the habit of checking in on feelings and dreams. Stability, once foreign, now anchored every day. Word of Amaka's compassion and her role in Junior's recovery reached Kingsley's wider circle, extended family, colleagues, and friends. Some were surprised that a young maid, barely out of her teens, could hold such influence over the household's happiness. Lessons bloom. But those who visited, cousins from Lagos Island, old university friends, saw firsthand the transformation. Laughter echoing through the marble halls, a child's artwork taped proudly to the kitchen wall, a sense of unity that could not be faked. Kingsley found himself defending Amaka at times when ignorance surfaced. Not everyone understood the value of kindness over pedigree. Yet he stood his ground, emphasizing that leadership in family came not from status or blood, but from genuine devotion and courage. Slowly, Amaka's confidence bloomed. She began pursuing her night classes again. With Kingsley's clear encouragement, he saw her potential and wanted to support her dreams as she had supported his family. The penthouse, once echoing with isolation, now breathed with hope. As the seasons shifted, celebrations became another thread, stitching their new life together. Junior's 8th birthday changed from a lavish affair thrown by planners to a small, meaningful gathering at home. Amaka baked a cake from scratch, using her grandmother's secret recipe, the smell of cocoa and cinnamon curling through the apartment. Junior and Kingsley decorated the living room with hand-cut paper chains and balloons, more joyful in their imperfections than any decorator's touch could offer. Friends and family gathered, sharing laughter and songs in a home transformed by warmth. Even Kingsley's ex-wife admitted, with a shy smile, that the atmosphere felt lighter, more genuine than any celebration before. That evening, as dusk settled and candle flames danced on the cake, Junior blew out the candles. His cheeks glowing with wishes only children dare to make. Kingsley squeezed Amaka's hand in gratitude under the table, silently acknowledging the loyalty and care that had changed not just Junior, but himself as well. In that moment, happiness seemed simple and attainable, a reward for shared vulnerability. Change, however, did not mean forgetting the hardships that brought them here. There were times when Kingsley felt the weight of regret, missed milestones, anger at himself for the years spent chasing accolades and approval instead of the small, fleeting wonders of parenthood. At night, when the city grew quiet and his thoughts grew loud, he would stand at that same penthouse window where the story began, watching neon lights flicker while he considered the far-flung future. Amaka, too, faced her own moments of uncertainty. She wondered whether her role in this fragile family constellation would endure once Junior had healed entirely. But gradually, trust replaced doubt. In late-night talks over mugs of tea, Kingsley shared the burdens he once kept hidden, and Amaka listened, her understanding deepened by her own resilience. Bloom. They reminded one another that mistakes were not the end. They were crossroads, offering new beginnings. Together, with Junior as the bright heart in their midst, they built not only routines, but relationships founded on sincerity and mutual respect. A kind of wealth Kingsley had long overlooked. Spring in the city brought sunlight and restless winds, ushering new opportunities into the household. Junior thrived under the quiet security that filled their home. He became more outspoken at school, more willing to join in games and speak his mind. His teachers began to remark upon his improved confidence and gentle kindness, sensing the shift even if they could not name its origin. Kingsley, too, felt the effects ripple outward. Time spent with Junior had rekindled old joys, teaching his son to ride a bicycle in the nearby park, cheering on clumsy first attempts and triumphs over scraped knees. Junior's laughter, which once seemed timid and scarce, now rang out openly, a welcome sound that lifted everyone's spirits. Amaka watched all this with pride, her smile quiet but full. She managed to keep up with her night classes and started tutoring her siblings over video calls in the evenings. The penthouse, previously reserved for business, now became a hub of learning, laughter, and honest conversation. Even the building's staff noticed the change, finding themselves greeted by Junior's enthusiastic hellos and Kingsley's new openness. Community blossomed from small acts, each day a new echo of connection. Yet, not every change came without discomfort. Kingsley still struggled with his past. Days would arrive when guilt and inadequacy crept through his mind, threatening to numb his resolve. He found himself questioning whether his efforts were enough, whether redemption for lost time was possible. During these moments, Amaka's wisdom became a guiding light. She offered simple truths, spoken over steaming mugs of cocoa as evening storms rattled the windows. "Regret is lonely," she told him one rainy night, "but it reminds us to keep trying." Her words grounded Kingsley, helping him frame each day as a step toward healing, not just for Junior, but for himself as well. Junior, intuitive beyond his years, would sometimes curl beside his father and share dreams, hopes for building tree houses, learning to swim, for growing up fearless and loved. Kingsley realized that the path forward wasn't about erasing his errors, but about walking beside his son, day after day, with the commitment to grow together. In the presence of Junior and Amaka, he found strength in shared vulnerability and the promise of continual renewal. Summer arrived with its own set of challenges. Junior's sleepwalking, though reduced, had not disappeared entirely. There were nights when Kingsley and Amaka took turns keeping watch, softly guiding Junior back to his bed and whispering reassurances until his rest was peaceful again. The experience drew them even closer, united by their shared concern and sleepless patience. In the midst of one such evening, Kingsley glanced at Amaka, her eyes weary but unyielding, and realized the depth of her dedication. He felt compelled to officially recognize her, not just as an employee, but as an essential part of their family's history. So one Sunday afternoon, he asked Amaka if she would consider staying long-term, offering her stability and support to continue her education alongside her work. Touched by the gesture, Amaka agreed, her gratitude shining in her eyes. Together, the trio moved forward, each contributing their strengths. Junior learned to trust his family's presence, even when fear tried to return, and Amaka felt empowered to pursue her aspirations, buoyed by Kingsley's respect and partnership. Years passed, and the lessons of those transformative months endured. Junior grew older, his childhood shaped by memories of love given and received. Amaka completed her degree and launched a small tutoring program for children in the neighborhood, inspired by the difference she had been able to make. Kingsley found new meaning in his life. He shifted some of his work toward philanthropy, creating scholarships for young women like Amaka, whose potential deserved recognition. The penthouse continued to host quiet celebrations, graduations, birthdays, even simple dinners that mark the ordinary joys of life. The family still honored their roots and the journey that shaped their togetherness. From the hardships that had brought them to a crisis, they built a foundation of understanding and grace. The wider community, seeing Kingsley's transformation, began to seek his counsel, not just in business, but in matters of the heart, recognizing that success sometimes came from humility and openness to change. In all things, the story of his family's resilience became an anchor, proof that compassion could rewrite even the most painful histories. Looking out across the city skyline one last time, Kingsley understood how much his life had been altered by the courage of a young woman and the unwavering love of a child. He reflected on the uncertain nights, the mistakes and reconciliations, and the moments of pure happiness that arrived unexpectedly. The story was no longer about riches or reputation, but about relationships born from shared trouble and mutual healing. Their family, multifaceted, imperfect, and deeply loyal, stood as a testament to what could be achieved through vulnerability, persistence, and kindness. Amaka, once the quiet maid, became not only a mentor and friend, but a catalyst for growth. Junior flourished, surrounded by adults who put aside pride and opened their hearts. As dusk settled over the towers, Kingsley felt peace, a certainty that the greatest fortune lay within the bonds of family and the bravery to prioritize love. Their journey was far from perfect, but it was honest and whole. It was theirs, and in the gentle silence, Kingsley smiled, knowing the future held endless possibility.